The prehistoric world was unforgiving, and for cavemen, survival was a daily battle against the extreme forces of nature. The Ice Age, with its relentless cold and brutal winters, posed the ultimate challenge for early humans. With temperatures plummeting to unbearable lows and food scarce, life on Earth felt like a fragile thread ready to snap at any moment. Yet, despite the daunting odds, humanity persevered. In this harsh environment, the cavemen were not just fighting against the elements. They were also facing the constant threat of extinction. Their survival depended on their ability to adapt and innovate in ways that would guarantee their place in the natural order. Every day was a test of endurance, intelligence, and resourcefulness. The sheer will to survive, to keep breathing in the coldest of nights, kept them going. But survival in the Ice Age was not just about staying warm. It was about creating a life amidst freezing temperatures, battling hunger, and contending with the fear of wild predators. Cavemen had to make strategic decisions: where to shelter, when to hunt, how to gather and store food, all while contending with the crushing loneliness and danger that came from being so vulnerable to the forces around them. What made this fight for survival even more complex was the nature of the environment itself. The winter nights in the Ice Age were long and unyielding. The darkness could stretch for weeks, and the cold was so extreme that it could freeze a man's breath before it even left his mouth. Against this backdrop of icy winds, biting cold, and a constant sense of impending doom, cavemen had to be ingenious, using every scrap of knowledge they could muster to survive. In the face of these challenges, warmth became a precious commodity. Fire, in particular, would become their greatest ally, allowing them to cook food, keep predators at bay, and most importantly, stay warm during the frigid nights. But fire wasn't something that could be taken for granted. It needed to be protected and maintained, requiring skill and attention. The cavemen's ability to control fire was a game changer, a symbol of their ability to conquer the environment rather than be dominated by it. Yet, fire wasn't the only tool at their disposal. Nature offered resources, tools, animals, plants that could be used in ingenious ways to fight against the cold and secure survival. Stone tools, animal pelts, and the bones of their prey were transformed into weapons, clothing, and shelters. Every item, every scrap of nature became an asset in their struggle for life. Despite the physical challenges of staying warm and fed, there were also profound emotional and psychological hurdles. Fear was a constant companion. Fear of the cold, fear of the dark, fear of starvation and death. But fear also gave rise to something else: resilience. The cavemen developed an inner strength and determination that allowed them to endure not just the physical toll of survival, but the emotional burden as well. For these early humans, survival was not just about staying alive. It was about finding a way to make life meaningful in a world that seemed so inhospitable. This struggle to find warmth, safety, and purpose in a hostile world helped shape the very fabric of humanity. Their social bonds were forged in the fire of adversity, with tribes coming together to share resources, support each other, and protect one another. As they huddled in caves or crude shelters, cavemen developed an understanding of the seasons, the animals around them, and the ever-changing landscape. They learned to track the movement of herds, to read the signs of the sky, and to predict the arrival of harsh winters. These survival skills were passed down from generation to generation, ensuring that the human species would not only survive but evolve. Through it all, the cavemen's drive for survival became a testament to human resilience. Their ability to overcome such harsh conditions, to endure the longest and coldest nights, speaks to the power of the human spirit. Despite being surrounded by darkness, they managed to create light, both literally and figuratively. This introductory section sets the stage for understanding the fundamental struggles of early human survival. The fear of death, the hunger, the cold, and the isolation from a hostile world provide a contrast to the warmth of the fire, the security of the tribe, and the determination to live. As we delve deeper into the challenges of surviving the Ice Age, we will see how these early humans not only learned to survive, but to thrive in a world that seemed determined to freeze them out. The Ice Age. A frozen world, the Ice Age, a time when glaciers stretched across continents and the Earth was enveloped in unrelenting cold, presents one of the most extreme environments humanity has ever faced. It was a time when the survival of life itself seemed tenuous, with the planet locked in a deadly embrace of ice and snow. For cavemen, this era wasn't merely a background to their lives. It was the ultimate test of their endurance, their adaptability, and their very existence. This section will explore the context of the Ice Age, which lasted for millions of years, and how it shaped the world that early humans inhabited. The most striking feature of the Ice Age was the relentless cold, which drastically altered the landscape. Massive ice sheets covered vast portions of the Earth, and much of the land was inhospitable, frozen beneath layers of thick ice. The world was plunged into a deep freeze, with temperatures plummeting far below anything that humans had ever experienced before. There was little escape from the cold, and the environment became a daily battle for survival. The cold wasn't just a physical nuisance. It was a matter of life and death. The winters could be brutal, stretching for months without end, with sunlight barely reaching the frozen ground. For cavemen, this meant that every aspect of their existence was deeply influenced by the surrounding ice and snow. The struggle to stay warm wasn't just about comfort. It was a matter of survival. Without warmth, the human body could quickly succumb to frostbite, hypothermia, or death. The absence of sufficient shelter could lead to exposure, and every night spent outside could be the last. But while the cold was unforgiving, the Ice Age wasn't a static world. It was dynamic, constantly shifting. Ice ages were marked by cycles of freezing and thawing, with fluctuating temperatures that created unstable environments. The planet wasn't uniformly frozen. In fact, many areas were still habitable, though they were often isolated and hard to access. Even during the colder periods, some regions offered a fragile hope for survival, with pockets of warmth or shelter where cavemen could seek refuge. The environment itself was a contradiction. Beneath the glaciers and snow, the land could still support a variety of life. The Ice Age saw the rise of large, mighty creatures such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and bison, all of which roamed the frozen plains in herds. These massive animals were the lifeblood of cavemen during these harsh periods. They provided food, clothing, and tools. But they were also dangerous adversaries. The very same creatures that provided life-sustaining resources could turn into deadly threats in a world of ice and snow. Hunting these beasts required intelligence, skill, and teamwork, without which the cavemen could not survive. The extreme conditions of the Ice Age also had a significant impact on the plants and vegetation. Most trees were sparse, and the ground was often covered with thick snow or frozen earth. Only the hardiest plants could survive, and these were often difficult to harvest. This limited the available food sources for cavemen. They were forced to rely on meat from their hunts and the few edible plants they could gather. The scarcity of food meant that they had to be resourceful and highly efficient in their efforts to procure and store provisions. Even in the harshest winters, they had a plan for the future, stockpiling food when it was available and finding ways to preserve it. The ice also reshaped the landscape in ways that impacted human migration. In many regions, the ice blocked traditional migration routes, forcing early humans to adapt and change their movement patterns. Some cavemen followed the herds of animals they hunted, while others were forced into smaller, more isolated regions where they had to rely on their ingenuity to survive. Migration was a strategy for avoiding the worst of the cold, seeking out warmer climates or areas that offered better access to food sources. But migration during the Ice Age wasn't an easy task. Moving large distances in search of better living conditions was fraught with dangers, from predatory animals to unforeseen weather events. Each journey was an ordeal, requiring stamina, strategy, and luck. The constant push and pull of ice and thaw led to a world that was both hostile and unpredictable. One day, a tribe could find itself in a relatively temperate area with enough resources to survive, only to find the next day that the land had frozen over, cutting off access to food and water. This uncertainty made life in the Ice Age deeply precarious, with cavemen forced to adapt quickly to ever-changing conditions. The cold was never just a static force. It was always moving, shifting, and evolving, keeping early humans on their toes and testing their survival instincts to the limit. Through this constant struggle against the elements, cavemen developed a keen understanding of their environment. They learned to read the signs of the weather, to track animal movements, and to anticipate changes in the landscape. These skills became vital, enabling them to survive not only during the coldest winters, but also during the unpredictable periods between freezes. Their knowledge of the land, honed over generations, became a tool for survival, a way of navigating the frozen world around them and finding ways to stay one step ahead of the relentless cold. In conclusion, the Ice Age was not just a period of time. It was a world that shaped and defined the early human experience. The challenges it presented were immense, but it also provided opportunities for growth and adaptation. The struggle against the cold, the need to understand and conquer the environment, and the drive to survive in such an unforgiving world forged the resilience that defined early humans. The harsh conditions of the Ice Age are what ultimately shaped the path of humanity, forcing cavemen to become experts in survival, adaptation, and endurance. Surviving the coldest nights, cavemen's body and behavior, the frigid nights of the Ice Age, were unforgiving, and early humans faced the constant challenge of surviving extreme temperatures that could freeze them to the core. For cavemen, survival was not just about the tools they used or the food they hunted. It was also about how their bodies and behaviors adapted to withstand such harsh conditions. While modern humans can rely on technology to keep warm, early humans had to depend on their physical and behavioral adaptations to survive the coldest nights of their existence. One of the most significant biological adaptations that cavemen developed was the ability to endure the freezing temperatures through their physical traits. These traits were essential for survival in a world where the temperature could drop to sub-zero levels. Early humans were equipped with thicker body hair compared to modern humans, which provided some insulation against the cold. Though they did not have the full body fur of animals like bears or wolves, their body hair acted as a first layer of defense against the freezing temperatures. This would have been crucial, especially when their bodies were exposed to the elements for extended periods during hunting, traveling, or even in the shelter of caves. In addition to body hair, another vital adaptation was the layer of fat that cavemen developed to store energy and retain body heat. The accumulation of subcutaneous fat was an evolutionary advantage, helping to insulate their bodies and protect vital organs from the extreme cold. During the Ice Age, when food sources were scarce, fat storage allowed early humans to survive through periods when hunting and gathering were difficult or impossible. This fat would have provided not only insulation, but also an emergency energy source, helping them endure the long stretches of winter when food was in limited supply. But survival wasn't just about having the right physical adaptations. It also required a range of behavioral strategies to make the most of the resources available. One of the primary survival mechanisms was the use of fire. Fire became the linchpin for warmth, cooking, and psychological comfort during the frigid nights. Early humans likely learned to control fire not just to cook food, but also to keep their bodies warm during the coldest nights. The warmth of the fire would have been a crucial lifeline, allowing them to sleep, eat, and perform other necessary tasks without succumbing to the biting cold. However, fire was a precious resource. Once it was lost, it could take hours or even days to create another fire from scratch. This made fire management a skill that was passed down through generations, deeply ingrained in their behavior. When fire wasn't an option, cavemen would have used other methods to trap and retain heat. In their shelters, they likely built small, enclosed spaces that retained warmth better than open areas. The use of animal pelts, Furs and hides to cover themselves or line their shelters was another critical adaptation. These materials acted as natural insulators, trapping body heat and protecting against the cold. In many ways, the survival of cavemen depended on their ability to create layers, whether through the layers of fat on their bodies, the layers of clothing they wore, or the layers of protection in their shelters. Each layer served to trap heat, keeping their bodies functional and warm even when the outside world seemed to freeze over. Beyond the physical and environmental adaptations, the behavioral aspects of surviving the cold were equally crucial. For example, cavemen would have adapted their daily routines to maximize energy conservation and minimize exposure to the cold. During the darkest, coldest months, it was likely that their activities were limited to essential survival tasks, such as hunting, foraging, and maintaining fire. The group structure and social bonds also played a crucial role in survival during harsh winters. Huddling together for warmth was not just a psychological comfort. It was a necessary survival tactic. Cavemen lived in small tribes or family groups, and the warmth and safety provided by these social structures were just as important as any physical adaptation. Psychologically, early humans had to contend with the mental toll of surviving in such a harsh environment. The cold, combined with hunger and the constant danger from predators, could create overwhelming stress. However, the cold also served as a catalyst for mental toughness. In the face of adversity, cavemen would have developed a unique resilience, the ability to keep going in spite of constant discomfort and fear. This resilience would have been key to survival. Those who could not mentally adapt to the harshness of the environment were likely less successful in the struggle for survival, while those who developed a psychological fortitude were more likely to endure and pass on their survival strategies to future generations. Sleep patterns also played a critical role in survival. The long nights of winter meant that cavemen had to conserve energy while also ensuring they were well rested enough to endure the next day's challenges. Their sleep was likely adjusted to fit the rhythm of the seasons, with longer periods of rest during the colder, darker months. However, sleep in the Ice Age would have been fraught with danger. The warmth of the fire and the safety of their shelters provided some protection, but predators and rival tribes could still pose a threat. Cavemen would have developed heightened senses and an alertness to danger, ensuring that they remained vigilant even while resting. The behavioral adaptations also extended to their interactions with their environment. Cavemen learned to read the signs of the weather, predicting storms or sudden temperature drops. They understood how to gather firewood and prepare shelters that could withstand the icy winds. Their survival in the winter months wasn't just a passive response to the cold. It was a strategic, calculated approach to mastering their environment. In conclusion, surviving the coldest nights of the Ice Age was a matter of both physical and behavioral adaptation. Early humans relied on their biological traits, such as body hair and fat, to withstand the cold, while also developing behavioral strategies like fire management and social cooperation to maximize warmth and minimize exposure. Their resilience, both physically and psychologically, allowed them to endure the most extreme conditions, forging the foundation for the survival of humanity in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Shelter from the storm. Caves, huts, and other safe havens for early humans. The quest for shelter was a life-or-death struggle, particularly in the face of the extreme weather conditions of the Ice Age. As the temperature dropped and the world became increasingly inhospitable, cavemen needed more than just food and fire to survive. They needed a safe place to rest, protect themselves from the cold, and safeguard their vulnerable lives from predators. The natural shelters they sought out were critical in their fight against the elements and threats that lurked in the darkness. The most obvious shelter for cavemen was the cave. Throughout the Ice Age, caves provided a ready-made refuge from the harsh conditions outside. These natural formations, often nestled in the side of a hill or within deep caverns, offered protection from the relentless cold, snowstorms, and wind. Caves provided not just warmth, but also a sense of security. They offered shelter from predators, shelter from rival groups, and a place to gather in safety. While caves were not always perfect for living, They could be damp, small, or already inhabited by other creatures. They provided a natural fortress that was easy to find and often required minimal construction effort. In the absence of suitable caves, early humans adapted by building their own shelters from materials readily available in their environment. These man-made structures were often made from wood, animal hides, and stones, and were carefully crafted to offer protection from the elements. The construction of these shelters would have been an essential skill that allowed cavemen to survive in areas where caves were scarce or unsuitable. The use of bones, furs, and other animal materials to construct temporary or semi-permanent shelters was a testament to human ingenuity and resourcefulness. Shelters constructed from animal skins or hides were particularly effective in colder climates. Early humans would have used large animal furs, such as those from mammoths, bison, or woolly rhinoceroses, to create warm, insulated coverings for their shelters. These coverings were not only essential for staying warm, but also served to protect the occupants from rain, snow, and the wind that could quickly freeze exposed skin and make even the simplest of tasks a struggle. Animal skins also helped provide privacy and a sense of security, marking a clear boundary between the warmth of the shelter and the dangerous cold outside. In many cases, these shelters were made from a combination of natural materials. Branches and trees might form the basic structure, while animal hides or other skins would cover the framework. Such shelters were often designed to be small and compact, maximizing warmth by concentrating the heat generated by the fire inside. The entrance would be narrow or positioned in such a way as to limit exposure to the wind, helping to keep the cold air at bay. The interior of these shelters would be lined with animal furs, providing additional warmth and cushioning from a hard, cold ground. Another important aspect of shelter construction was the location. Early humans would have sought out areas that were naturally protected from the elements, such as the lee of a hill, the mouth of a cave, or the edge of a forest. These sites offered some shelter from the wind and snow, allowing the inhabitants to focus on survival without the constant battle against the forces of nature. In regions where snowstorms and blizzards were frequent, cavemen would have constructed their shelters with the direction of the wind in mind, positioning the entrance so that it faced away from the most dangerous weather. But even in the best shelter, safety was never guaranteed. Predators, such as saber-toothed cats and dire wolves, were constant threats, and cavemen needed to be vigilant. The cold was an enemy that could freeze the body in a matter of hours, but the predators of the Ice Age were equally dangerous, stalking their prey in the darkness and using the cover of snow and ice to hunt. Early humans needed to be aware of their surroundings at all times and would have used fire, loud noises, and even strategic placement of their shelters to ward off predators. Social dynamics also played an important role in the choice and construction of shelters. Cavemen did not live in isolation. They lived in small tribes or family units that relied on each other for survival. The shared shelter was a symbol of the community's resilience, where one person's warmth and strength could help support the entire group. The close quarters would have fostered social bonds and strengthened group cohesion. This shared space also played an important role in the emotional well-being of early humans. In a world where death, danger, and deprivation were constants, the shelter served as a sanctuary, a place where cavemen could gather around the fire, share food, and reconnect after a long, difficult day of survival. The shelter, whether it was a cave or a carefully constructed hut, also marked a dividing line between the dangers of the wilderness and the safety of human civilization. It was within these shelters that humans developed some of their earliest social structures and rituals. Around the fire in a safe haven, cavemen could tell stories, pass down traditions, and bond over shared experiences. These social bonds were essential for survival, and the shelter became more than just a physical refuge. It became a place of emotional warmth and psychological safety. But the constant threat of the cold meant that no shelter was ever truly secure. Cavemen had to be resourceful and constantly prepared for the worst. They had to maintain their shelters, repair damage, and reinforce the structure as needed. During particularly harsh winters, when snow piled up high and temperatures plummeted, the shelter might need to be moved or rebuilt altogether. This constant vigilance and adaptability were central to survival, and the ability to quickly alter or improve shelter designs helped early humans stay one step ahead of the elements. In conclusion, shelter was not just a physical structure for cavemen. It was their lifeline in the battle against the cold, the predators, and the hardships of the Ice Age. Whether using natural caves or constructing their own homes from animal skins and wood, early humans understood the importance of a safe haven from the dangers that surrounded them. The shelter represented both physical and emotional security, allowing cavemen to survive and thrive despite the freezing, hostile world around them. As the human species evolved, so did the concept of shelter, but in those early days, the ability to find or build a safe, warm refuge was a fundamental key to survival. Fire, the most powerful tool in the survival arsenal of early humans, was not only a source of heat, but a symbol of control over nature. In the cold, harsh environment of the Ice Age, fire became an absolute necessity for survival. The flickering flames provided warmth, a means to cook food, and a form of protection against the dangers of the dark and wild creatures that roamed the earth. It is hard to imagine how early humans could have survived the brutal winters without fire, as it was both a physical and psychological anchor in their lives. The discovery and control of fire marked a monumental step in human evolution. While fire was a natural phenomenon, harnessing it for practical use required ingenuity and persistence. Early humans likely started by exploiting naturally occurring fires caused by lightning or volcanic eruptions. But once they mastered the technique of starting and maintaining fire, it opened up a new world of possibilities. Fire became more than just an element. It became a tool that could be used to shape the world around them. To start a fire, early humans used primitive methods, such as striking stones together to create sparks, rubbing sticks together to generate heat, or using friction to ignite dry materials. These methods required patience, skill, and the right conditions, making fire something to be respected and carefully maintained. The ability to control fire was no small feat, and its loss could be disastrous. In an environment where temperatures could plummet to life-threatening lows, being without fire could mean certain death. Once a fire was started, its importance could not be overstated. Fire offered a lifeline in the freezing wilderness. It was used primarily for warmth, providing a small, controlled zone of comfort within the harsh, unforgiving world outside. Without fire, cavemen would have had to rely on their physical adaptations, like body fat and hair, to survive the cold. But fire allowed them to take their survival into their own hands. It meant they could gather around its warmth, preserve body heat, and sleep through the freezing nights without fear of succumbing to the elements. Cooking food was another crucial role that fire played in early human survival. During the Ice Age, food sources were scarce, and meat was often the primary diet. Fire allowed cavemen to cook meat, making it more palatable and easier to digest. Cooking also allowed them to soften tough meats, such as those from large herbivores like mammoths, bison, and reindeer. Moreover, the process of cooking meat with fire helped eliminate harmful bacteria and parasites, making food safer to eat. It is likely that fire also played a psychological role in their daily routines, providing a communal gathering point where people could bond, share experiences, and preserve their sense of community during times of danger and isolation. Protection from predators was another life-saving function of fire. The darkness and cold of the Ice Age winters brought with it threats from predators, some of whom could stalk and attack early humans with terrifying efficiency. Saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and cave bears were among the dangers that cavemen faced. These predators were at their most active during the night, and the security offered by fire could mean the difference between life and death. The light and heat from a fire created a barrier that was difficult for predators to penetrate. Wild animals tended to avoid fire, and it likely served as both a deterrent and a weapon, making it easier for cavemen to sleep undisturbed. Moreover, fire had an important social function. The gathering around a fire provided a space for storytelling, bonding, and sharing vital survival knowledge. Fire was central to the social life of early humans, as it offered a communal focal point in an otherwise solitary existence. The light of the fire illuminated the darkness, helping people feel safe and connected. In an environment as harsh and isolating as the Ice Age, this sense of connection would have been crucial for the psychological well-being of the group. Social bonds strengthened around the fire, and this group cohesion was essential for survival. Humans who worked together, shared resources, and cooperated with one another were far more likely to survive than those who tried to endure the harsh conditions alone. In terms of practical applications, fire also played a role in tool-making. Early humans used fire to harden wooden spears and other tools, increasing their durability and effectiveness. They also used fire to melt and shape metals, though this practice would have come much later in human history. However, even in the earliest periods, fire was crucial for the production of stone tools, as heat treatment was used to improve the sharpness and efficiency of these tools. These enhanced tools allowed cavemen to hunt more effectively, build better shelters, and defend themselves against predators. While fire brought numerous benefits, it also came with significant risks. As essential as it was, fire was a double-edged sword. If a fire got out of control, it could burn down entire shelters and threaten the lives of everyone in the group. Additionally, starting and maintaining a fire could be exhausting and time-consuming. The constant need for dry wood, flint, or other materials to keep the fire burning meant that cavemen had to be constantly on the move to gather fuel. In some regions, firewood was scarce, and it could take hours or even days to find enough dry wood to keep the fire going. The reliance on fire also meant that cavemen had to be extremely careful in how they handled it. It's likely that they had learned strategies for managing fire, such as storing embers or keeping a steady supply of fuel nearby. The importance of fire meant that it was a group responsibility to ensure that it was kept alive, and fire management may have been a key social task that bound the group together. In conclusion, fire was one of the most important discoveries in human history, and it played a vital role in the survival of early humans during the Ice Age. It provided warmth, allowed food to be cooked, protected against predators, and served as a focal point for socialization and bonding. Fire was not just a tool. It was a symbol of humanity's ability to adapt, innovate, and take control of their environment. While it posed dangers of its own, the ability to create, control, and maintain fire marked a pivotal point in human evolution, and it remains central to the story of survival in the Ice Age. The survival of cavemen during the cold, harsh winters of the Ice Age was largely dependent on their ability to hunt, gather, and store food. The frigid temperatures, coupled with the scarcity of edible plants, meant that these early humans had to rely heavily on hunting for sustenance. The challenges of hunting and foraging during the winter months were immense, but the ability to adapt to these challenges ensured the survival of early human communities in one of Earth's most unforgiving periods. In the Ice Age, the land was dominated by vast herds of large herbivores, such as mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, bison, and reindeer. These animals were the primary food source for early humans, providing not just meat, but also bones for tools, skins for clothing, and fat for fuel and warmth. Hunting such large and dangerous animals required skill, strategy, and cooperation. The hunting process was complex and varied, depending on the species being targeted, the terrain, and the time of year. The hunt itself was often a collective effort. Early humans lived in small tribes or family groups, and hunting was a task that required teamwork. Strategies ranged from direct pursuit to ambush tactics, and these methods would have been honed over generations. Cavemen had to be patient and intelligent in their approach. They would track the animals, studying their behavior and movements to predict where they would be. Hunting wasn't just about chasing down prey. It was about understanding the environment and the animals within it. A deep knowledge of animal behavior, migration patterns, and the natural landscape was crucial for a successful hunt. One of the most well-known hunting methods of the Ice Age involved the use of spears and other simple weapons. These tools were crafted from stone, bone, or wood, and were designed to be thrown or thrust at large prey. The spear was a versatile weapon, enabling hunters to strike from a distance while keeping themselves out of harm's way. Early humans would have also used other tools, such as atlatls, spear throwers, which allowed them to throw their spears with greater force and accuracy. This technological advancement would have been instrumental in hunting larger, faster, and more dangerous animals. In addition to spears, early humans likely used traps and snares to capture smaller animals, such as rabbits, birds, and rodents. These animals, though smaller in size, were also a valuable food source during the winter months. Trapping required knowledge of animal behavior, as well as the ability to set effective snares in the right locations. Hunting small game was often done in between larger hunts, providing a steady source of food and protein during leaner times. Foraging was another essential component of the survival strategy. While meat was the primary food source, early humans would have foraged for berries, roots, nuts, and other edible plants when available. The Ice Age landscape, however, was not particularly conducive to plant growth during the winter months. Most plants died off or became dormant in the cold, leaving little for early humans to gather. However, there are certain plants that could withstand the freezing temperatures and still provide nourishment. In the warmer months, these foraged foods would have been gathered and preserved for the winter. They would have been dried, smoked, or stored in cool, dry places to ensure a supply of food when hunting was difficult or unsuccessful. The scarcity of edible plants in winter meant that hunting became even more critical to survival. When large animals were killed, every part of the animal was utilized. The meat was eaten, the bones were shaped into tools, and the skin was used to make clothing and shelter. The fat of the animals was especially important for early humans. It provided essential calories that were needed to survive the cold, and it could also be used for fuel in lamps or for making primitive soaps. One of the significant challenges of hunting and foraging in the Ice Age was the environmental conditions. The harsh winter months meant that hunting became much more difficult. The snow could make tracking animals more challenging, and the cold could cause hunters to fatigue more quickly. The Ice Age was also marked by changing climates, periods of intense cold followed by brief warm spells, which added an element of unpredictability to the hunt. The weather could turn at any moment, making it dangerous to be out in the open for long periods. The ice-covered terrain was another difficulty hunters had to overcome. The frozen ground made it harder to track animals, and the thick snow could slow down pursuit. The ice also made the landscape treacherous to navigate, with hunters risking injury from falls or even being trapped by sudden storms. Despite these challenges, early humans developed a keen understanding of how to work with their environment. They adapted their techniques to account for the weather and learned to use the snow and ice to their advantage, camouflaging themselves or using the cold to track the signs of prey. Hunting during the Ice Age wasn't just a physical endeavor. It also had a spiritual dimension. Early humans often saw animals as powerful beings, and hunting could carry significant spiritual and cultural meaning. Cave paintings, carvings, and other forms of ancient artwork suggest that animals, especially large prey like mammoths, were central to the belief systems of early human groups. Rituals surrounding hunting, such as offerings or prayers to animal spirits, may have been used to ensure success in the hunt and to honor the animals that provided sustenance. Food preservation was also a critical aspect of winter survival. Given the difficulty of hunting and foraging during the colder months, early humans would have been experts at preserving the food they gathered. The drying of meat, the smoking of fish, and the use of ice to preserve perishable goods were all essential techniques. These preservation methods allowed them to store food for times when hunting was difficult or when a shortage of resources made hunting unfeasible. The ability to secure food during the Ice Age required a deep understanding of the seasons, animal behaviors, and the weather. It was a skill passed down through generations, as each group learned from the successes and failures of their predecessors. In times of scarcity, the tribe would need to work together to share resources, combining the efforts of hunters and foragers to ensure that everyone had enough to survive the long winter nights. In conclusion, hunting and foraging were the cornerstones of survival for early humans during the Ice Age. The physical demands of hunting large game, combined with the challenges of foraging in a cold, barren landscape created an intricate web of survival strategies. Through teamwork, skill, and a deep understanding of the environment, cavemen were able to gather life from the frost. Their ability to adapt to the changing seasons, track animals, and utilize every part of their prey ensured that they not only survived, but thrived in one of the most extreme periods of Earth's history. In the Ice Age, the raw power of nature was a constant adversary, and survival depended on the ability to adapt and innovate. Early humans had to use every tool at their disposal, and the development and mastery of these tools was pivotal in ensuring their survival. The tools that cavemen crafted were not just primitive implements, they were lifelines. These instruments allowed them to hunt, build shelter, create fire, and protect themselves from the many dangers that surrounded them. The tools of the Ice Age were forged from the materials available in the natural world. Stone, bone, wood, and animal parts formed the basis of early human toolkits. The mastery of these materials and the skills required to shape them into functional tools marked the difference between survival and extinction. Stone tools were the most iconic of these early instruments, and their development marked a key step in human evolution. One of the earliest and most important tools was the stone hand axe. Early humans would have shaped large stones into sharp, durable edges, which could be used for cutting, chopping, and scraping. These tools were essential for processing meat, breaking down large animals for food, and preparing materials for building shelters. The stone hand axe was a versatile tool that could be adapted for various tasks. It could be used to butcher animals, dig for roots and tubers, and even cut wood. The ability to craft such tools marked a significant step forward in human capability and ingenuity. In addition to hand axes, early humans crafted scrapers, chisels, and blades from flint and other stones. Scrapers were used to remove the skin from animals, allowing early humans to prepare hides for clothing and shelter. These tools were also used to clean bones and other materials, making them suitable for use in toolmaking. Chisels and blades enabled cavemen to carve wood or bone into more specialized implements, such as spears, arrows, or digging tools. These tools allowed early humans to engage with their environment in ways that were previously impossible. They could now process food, build shelter, and defend themselves, all thanks to their ability to craft tools from the materials they had at hand. Bone tools were also critical in the Ice Age survival toolkit. Bones from large game animals, such as mammoths and bison, were shaped into various implements, including needles, fishhooks, and awls. Bone needles were used to sew clothing made from animal hides, which provided essential warmth during the bitterly cold winters. Fishhooks, fashioned from bones, allowed early humans to catch fish when hunting large animals was not possible. Awls, made from sharpened bones, were used to punch holes in hides and wood, enabling cavemen to create more complex tools and shelter. One of the most important bone tools was the spear. Early humans used bones from large animals to create the shafts of spears, which were then tipped with sharpened stone points. These spears allowed cavemen to hunt large prey from a distance, reducing the risk of injury. The development of the spear was a breakthrough in hunting technology, allowing early humans to hunt larger and more dangerous animals like mammoths and saber-toothed cats. The spear was a tool of both survival and defense, providing protection against predators and rivals. In addition to their skill with stone and bone, early humans also used wood in their toolmaking. Wood was shaped into handles for axes, spears, and other implements. While wood was a more fragile material compared to stone and bone, it was still invaluable in crafting tools. Early humans would have selected the most durable types of wood and carefully shaped them using stones or bones. The creation of wooden tools allowed early humans to develop more complex hunting and gathering techniques, such as the use of atlatls, spear throwers, which increased the force and distance that spears could travel. The evolution of tools went hand in hand with the development of human intelligence and creativity. As early humans honed their skills, they began to make more specialized tools for specific tasks. These tools were designed to make survival more efficient and effective. For example, Early humans developed grinding stones to process seeds and nuts, allowing them to access more food resources. They also created vessels to store food and water, which were critical for survival during the harsh winter months when fresh food was scarce. The mastery of tool-making was not just about creating functional objects. It also represented a deep understanding of the materials and the environment. Early humans learned to work with natural resources, using the stones, bones, wood, and skins available to them in innovative ways. They didn't just rely on their hands. They used their brains to adapt and improve upon existing tools, constantly refining their techniques and tools to meet the challenges they faced. One of the most striking aspects of Ice Age toolmaking was the attention to detail and the craftsmanship involved. Some of the tools that have been uncovered in archaeological digs show signs of intricate design. For example, some tools were polished to a smooth finish, showing that early humans took pride in their work and understood the importance of precision. Some stone blades were shaped to resemble the shape of an animal or another object, suggesting that tool-making had a deeper cultural significance. These tools were not merely functional. They were also works of art, created with care and intention. The development of tools also had a profound impact on the social structure of early human communities. The sharing of tools, the division of labor, and the passing down of knowledge from generation to generation all played a role in the survival of early humans. Toolmaking likely became a communal activity, with individuals specializing in different types of tools, from hunting weapons to domestic implements. This specialization of labor allowed early humans to be more efficient in their survival tasks, from hunting to food processing to shelter building. The act of crafting tools also fostered communication and cooperation within a tribe. Sharing tools, knowledge, and techniques would have helped build trust and social cohesion among group members. The ability to work together and use tools effectively was essential for survival in such a challenging environment. In conclusion, tools were not just instruments of survival. They were central to the development of human society. From stone axes to bone needles to wooden spears, the tools created by early humans allowed them to hunt, build, protect, and thrive in a hostile environment. The mastery of tool-making marked a significant step in human evolution, enabling cavemen to adapt to the Ice Age world and overcome the challenges they faced. These tools were essential not only for survival, but also for the development of early human culture, social structures, and innovation. Through their ingenuity and creativity, early humans turned the raw materials of nature into the instruments that allowed them to survive and eventually thrive in one of the most difficult periods in Earth's history. In the frigid, unpredictable world of the Ice Age, survival was not an individual pursuit, but a communal effort. The early human groups who endured the extreme conditions of the Ice Age understood that cooperation, social bonds, and group cohesion were essential for ensuring the survival of their species. The social structures of these communities were vital for overcoming the constant threats posed by the environment, predators, and scarcity of resources. Early humans faced an unforgiving world, and their success was largely dependent on their ability to work together as a unit. At the core of this communal survival was the family or tribal unit. These groups often consisted of extended families, multiple generations living and working together for mutual benefit. The social structure of these early human groups was likely hierarchical but flexible. Elders and experienced hunters held a level of respect due to their knowledge, wisdom, and skill. However, there was also a collective approach to survival. Everyone, from the youngest children to the oldest adults, played a role in the daily survival of the group. The family and tribal bonds formed the foundation of early human society. In a world where danger was constant, from the environment, wild animals, and rival human groups, the sense of belonging to a group provided not just emotional support, but a critical means of protection. The group was more than just a social unit. It was a protective mechanism. Individuals knew that their survival depended on the cooperation and contributions of the others in the group. This sense of mutual reliance ensured that all tasks, whether hunting, gathering, cooking, or shelter building, were shared among members, with each individual playing an integral role in the survival of the community. Hunting, one of the most critical activities for early humans, was typically a group effort. Hunting large game, such as mammoths or bison, required coordination, strategy, and teamwork. It was unlikely that any one individual could take down such large animals alone. Instead, early humans would have worked together, using complex communication, shared knowledge, and cooperation to trap, ambush, or chase down their prey. Even with weapons like spears and bows, the hunt was a dangerous and physically demanding task. Working as a team reduced the risk of injury and increased the chances of success. In this context, social bonds were not just important, they were essential. The hunt was an all-hands-on-deck situation, where each person's participation increased the group's chances of bringing home enough food to survive. Similarly, food sharing within these groups was crucial for maintaining group cohesion and survival. In times of scarcity, the resources gathered through hunting and foraging had to be carefully distributed. This practice of sharing was likely embedded in the social structure of early humans. The strongest and most skilled hunters would often share their catch with the rest of the group, ensuring that everyone, including the elderly, children, and sick, had enough to eat. It is likely that these early human communities had unwritten rules governing food sharing, where the contributions of each member were recognized and resources were distributed equitably. This sharing of resources helped maintain social order and prevented conflict within a group. In fact, the concept of reciprocity may have been one of the earliest forms of social cooperation, laying the groundwork for more complex social structures in future human societies. The role of social bonds extended beyond survival tasks like hunting and gathering. It also played a significant role in the emotional well-being of the group. The harsh conditions of the Ice Age, coupled with the constant threat of predators and the struggle to find food, could take a psychological toll on early humans. The group provided a crucial support system, where individuals could lean on each other for comfort, support, and protection from the psychological stresses of daily life. The presence of others gave a sense of security and stability in an otherwise hostile world. This sense of security extended to the most vulnerable members of the group: children, the elderly, and the sick, who would rely heavily on the cooperation of others for their survival. Social life also revolved around rituals and customs that helped bond the group. Early humans likely practiced rituals associated with hunting, fertility, and seasonal changes. These rituals not only served practical purposes, such as ensuring successful hunts, but also reinforced group identity and cohesion. Rituals provided a way for the group to express collective values, transmit knowledge, and foster a sense of belonging. Through rituals, early humans reinforced social norms and cemented their roles within the group. For example, ceremonies around hunting success might have involved singing, dancing, or storytelling, which helped solidify the group's shared history and culture. These practices were central to the emotional and psychological fabric of the community, providing meaning and context to their harsh reality. The dynamics of early human social structures were not just limited to family and tribe. They also extended to relationships with neighboring groups. Early humans were often faced with competition for resources, which led to territorial conflicts or clashes with rival tribes. This was particularly true in areas where food was scarce or environmental conditions made survival more difficult. Conflicts between tribes would have been frequent, but so would alliances and trade. Early human groups likely engaged in trade for essential resources like flint, animal pelts, or tools. These interactions fostered a network of relationships that extended beyond the immediate family or tribe, creating a web of interdependence. In times of conflict, groups had to come together and defend their territory from predators or rival tribes. In these moments, unity and the strength of social bonds were paramount. Defensive strategies would have been collectively devised, with each person contributing to the effort to safeguard the group's well-being. The physical protection of the group was closely tied to the social cohesion that existed within it. Without strong, supportive relationships, early humans would have been more vulnerable to external threats. The bond between individuals and the group provided not just safety, but also resilience in the face of external danger. Over time, these social structures would have evolved, becoming more sophisticated as early humans developed more complex societies. However, the basic principles of cooperation, mutual support, and shared survival needs remain constant. The group, or tribe, was the foundation of early human life, providing not just the means for survival, but also the emotional and psychological support needed to endure the harsh world of the Ice Age. In conclusion, the social structure of early human groups was central to their survival. The bonds between individuals allowed for the sharing of resources, protection from predators, and the collective effort needed for hunting, shelter building, and other survival tasks. These social bonds were not just a byproduct of survival, they were integral to it. The sense of community and mutual support was crucial for coping with the challenges of the Ice Age, and it laid the foundation for the development of more complex social systems in later human history. The survival of early humans depended not just on their individual strength and ingenuity, but on the strength of the social fabric that held them together. As early humans faced the harsh realities of life during the Ice Age, their survival was not solely dependent on physical strength or intelligence. Their beliefs, rituals, and spirituality also played a crucial role. The cold, dangerous world they inhabited was unpredictable and often hostile. In such an environment, early humans sought meaning and purpose through rituals, spiritual practices, and belief systems. These rituals, often centered around survival, fertility, death, and the natural world, served as a way to explain the mysteries of existence and provide comfort in the face of daily struggles. Spirituality and rituals were not merely decorative or ceremonial. They were deeply woven into the fabric of everyday life. They provided a sense of control in an otherwise chaotic world, offering early humans a framework through which they could understand the forces of nature and the challenges they faced. Whether through offerings to deities, rites of passage, or communal gatherings, rituals helped early humans cope with the uncertainty of survival in the Ice Age. One of the most fundamental aspects of early human spirituality was the reverence for animals. Animals were a source of food, tools, and clothing, but they also held deep spiritual significance. Many early human groups viewed animals as powerful beings, embodying the essence of the natural world. This reverence for animals is evident in the many cave paintings and carvings found throughout archaeological sites. These depictions often show animals such as mammoths, bison, and deer, suggesting that early humans saw these creatures not only as prey, but as sacred beings to be respected. The act of hunting these animals was not only a physical necessity, but also a spiritual act, one that required ritual and respect. Cave art, especially, reveals the importance of animals in early human beliefs. Some cave paintings depict animals in great detail, perhaps as a means of honoring them or invoking their spirits for a successful hunt. It is likely that these artworks were part of religious or spiritual rituals performed by groups before or during the hunt. Early humans may have believed that by creating these images, they could communicate with the animal spirits or ask for their help in the hunt. The caves themselves, as natural shelters, may have also been considered sacred spaces where humans could connect with the divine or the spiritual world. Rituals surrounding death and the afterlife were also central to early human beliefs. Evidence suggests that early humans engaged in burial practices, often placing tools, animal bones, and personal items alongside the deceased. This suggests that they believed in an existence beyond death and that the dead required provisions for their journey to the afterlife. The burial of the dead in specific locations, sometimes marked with stones or other symbols, further indicates a belief in spiritual continuity. The careful treatment of the dead, including the use of clothing and grave goods, suggests a reverence for those who had passed, perhaps in the belief that they continued to play a role in the spiritual life of the community. In addition to death, fertility was another central theme in early human spirituality. The cycle of life, with its constant renewal, was critical to the survival of early human groups, and this was reflected in their beliefs. Evidence of fertility rituals has been found in the form of figurines, carvings, and symbols, many of which depict the female form. These figurines, often made from bone, ivory, or stone, likely represented fertility deities or spirits, and they may have been used in rituals aimed at ensuring the fertility of women, animals, and the land. The connection between fertility and survival was particularly important during the harsh winters, when the cycle of nature could seem fragile and uncertain. These rituals may have been intended to promote the growth of plants, ensure the birth of healthy animals, and guarantee the continued survival of the group. The role of the shaman or spiritual leader in early human communities was likely essential. Shamans, or individuals with special spiritual knowledge, would have guided the group through rituals, offering spiritual guidance and ensuring the success of hunts and the protection of the tribe. Shamans were believed to have the ability to communicate with the spirit world, heal the sick, and interpret dreams or visions. They played a critical role in the social and spiritual life of the group, offering both practical and mystical support. The role of the shaman was not just about religious belief. It was a survival strategy, as the connection to the spiritual world helped maintain harmony within the group and with the natural forces around them. The changing seasons and the unpredictable nature of the Ice Age climate likely had a profound impact on early human spirituality. As winter set in, bringing with it long nights and bitter cold, humans would have felt particularly vulnerable. The rituals and spiritual beliefs surrounding the seasons may have been an attempt to control the uncertainty that came with the changing climate. These seasonal rituals were likely tied to the migration patterns of animals and the availability of food. Early humans would have relied on these beliefs to guide them through the uncertainty of winter, helping them make sense of the hardships they faced. Fire, too, held deep spiritual significance. As a central part of daily survival, fire was more than just a practical tool. It was a symbol of warmth, light, and life in the midst of the cold and darkness. Early humans likely viewed fire as a sacred force, perhaps even personifying it as a spirit or deity. The act of lighting a fire, then, could have been a ritual act, one that reaffirmed the group's connection to the natural world and their ability to survive. It is possible that fire rituals were held to celebrate the return of the sun or to mark important transitions in the group's life, such as the start of a hunt or the change of seasons. One of the most profound aspects of early human spirituality was the role of storytelling. As communities gathered around the fire, stories were passed down from one generation to the next. These stories were not only entertaining. They were also vehicles for teaching survival skills, passing on cultural traditions, and reinforcing the social bonds of the group. Through storytelling, early humans could share their experiences, celebrate their successes, and learn from their mistakes. Storytelling also allowed them to make sense of the world around them, turning the mysteries of nature and the uncertainties of life into comprehensible narratives. These stories were vital in preserving the collective memory of the group and in maintaining the social cohesion necessary for survival. In conclusion, rituals and beliefs were deeply intertwined with survival during the Ice Age. Early humans did not merely rely on physical tools and strategies to survive. They also depended on their spiritual practices to help them make sense of the harsh world they lived in. Through rituals centered around animals' fertility, death, and the seasons, they created a framework for understanding the forces of nature and their place within it. Spirituality provided comfort in times of hardship, offering a sense of control over the uncontrollable and a way to connect with the mysteries of life. These rituals were not simply acts of faith. They were an essential part of the survival strategy that helped early humans navigate the challenges of the Ice Age and endure the coldest winters. In the unforgiving cold of the Ice Age, shelter was not just a comfort. It was a necessity for survival. The long, harsh winters, with their freezing temperatures and biting winds, made it essential for early humans to find or create safe spaces that could offer warmth, protection, and refuge from the dangers of the wild. The types of shelters early humans used varied, depending on the available resources, the environment, and the needs of the group. Whether using natural caves, constructing simple tents, or building more permanent structures, the quest for shelter was integral to their ability to endure the Ice Age's extreme conditions. Natural shelters, particularly caves, were often the first choice for early humans. Caves provided immediate shelter from the elements and were a refuge from predators and harsh weather. Caves were naturally insulated, and their solid stone walls helped protect early humans from the bitter cold of winter nights. Inside, early humans could build fires to warm themselves, and the space offered a sense of security, as caves also kept predators at bay. Some caves, especially those located near water sources or hunting grounds, became long-term living spaces for early humans, providing a base for seasonal migration patterns. However, caves were not always available or suitable for every group. As early humans began to spread across different environments, they had to adapt to a variety of landscapes. In places where caves were scarce or too small, early humans turned to other methods of shelter. The construction of temporary shelters using natural materials like wood, animal skins, and plant fibers became essential for survival. These shelters, though more rudimentary than caves, offered protection from the cold, wind, and rain. One of the most common types of shelters used during the Ice Age was the lean-to. A lean-to was a simple structure made by leaning branches or wooden poles against a support, such as a tree or a rock, and covering it with animal skins, plant materials, or thatch. These shelters were quick to build, requiring little more than the tools available in the environment. They were also portable, allowing groups to move as necessary in search of food or more favorable conditions. The flexibility of a lean-to made an ideal choice for nomadic groups who had to relocate frequently in response to changing weather patterns or food availability. For groups that spent longer periods in one location, more substantial shelters were necessary. The construction of these shelters was more complex and required a greater investment of time and resources. Early humans often built circular or oval-shaped dwellings using a framework of wood or bone, covering the structure with skins, bark, or grasses. These dwellings, sometimes referred to as huts or dwellings, were more insulated than lean-tos and provided a more stable refuge during the bitter winter months. The interiors of these shelters were often lined with animal skins or fur, which provided additional warmth and comfort. Inside, early humans would have gathered around a central fire, using it for warmth, cooking, and light. The choice of shelter also depended on the specific environmental conditions and the resources available. In regions where trees were abundant, early humans were able to construct more substantial shelters with wooden frameworks, offering better insulation and protection. In colder, more barren regions, such as tundras or areas with sparse vegetation, shelters were made primarily from animal skins and bones, with little or no wooden framework. These structures were designed to be lightweight and easy to assemble, allowing groups to move quickly when necessary. In addition to protecting against the cold, shelters also served as a place for socializing, resting, and sharing communal tasks. The shelter was the center of daily life, where families gathered, cooked, and engaged in rituals. The communal aspect of sheltering helped to strengthen social bonds within the group, as shelter building and maintenance were shared responsibilities. These shelters also provided a place of safety, where the group could take refuge from the dangers of wild animals, harsh weather, and even rival human groups. The walls of the shelter were a buffer between the group and the dangerous, unpredictable world outside. Animal skins played an important role in the construction of Ice Age shelters. Not only were they used as coverings for the structures themselves, but they also provided warmth and comfort inside the shelter. Skins from large mammals such as mammoths, bison, and reindeer were highly valued for their durability and insulating properties. These hides were often treated and softened to create warm, weatherproof blankets or clothing. Early humans would have carefully harvested these animal skins, using every part of the animal to ensure minimal waste. Even the bones and sinew from the animals were used to craft tools and to sew together the hides. The construction of shelters was a skill passed down through generations. Children would have learned how to build and maintain shelters from an early age, participating in the gathering of materials and the construction process. This shared knowledge and the division of labor helped to maintain the group's survival through the long winters. Adults would have worked together, with each member contributing their expertise, whether in building, hunting, or gathering resources. In this way, shelter building was not just about survival. It was a deeply communal activity that reinforced social bonds and ensured the continued well-being of the group. The ability to build and maintain shelters also reflected a broader understanding of the natural world. Early humans had a deep knowledge of the environment, and they used this knowledge to select the best locations for their shelters. Shelters were often placed in areas that offered natural protection, such as near cliffs or outcrops, where the wind could be blocked, or near water sources for easy access to fresh water. The positioning of shelters also took into account the movement of animals, allowing groups to stay close to their food sources while minimizing the risk of encountering predators. As the Ice Age progressed, early humans began to develop more permanent structures that reflected their growing ability to manipulate the environment. In certain regions, such as the northern European tundra, early humans built semi-subterranean dwellings. These structures were partially dug into the ground, which provided additional insulation from the cold. The roofs of these dwellings were often made from animal skins, wood, or stone, and the interiors were lined with animal pelts for comfort and warmth. These permanent shelters were more labor-intensive to construct, but they offered much greater protection and stability, allowing early humans to weather the harsh winters more effectively. Shelters, therefore, were not just physical structures. They were integral to the survival, culture, and social life of early humans. They represented the ingenuity and adaptability of our ancestors in the face of extreme adversity. The quest for shelter, whether through the use of natural caves or the construction of elaborate dwellings, reflects humanity's relentless drive to protect itself from the elements and thrive in the harshest of environments. In conclusion, shelters during the Ice Age were not just places of rest. They were essential for survival. The ability to create safe, insulated spaces was key to enduring the cold, and the development of shelter-building techniques played a vital role in the survival of early human communities. These shelters, whether temporary or permanent, were central to the lives of early humans. They provided warmth, security, and a sense of community, ensuring that early humans could survive the harsh conditions of the Ice Age and continue to evolve in the face of adversity. The Ice Age was not a static period for early humans. Rather, it was marked by frequent migration as humans moved in search of food, more favorable climates, and new territories. The constant movement was essential for survival, as early humans followed the herds of large animals that they hunted for sustenance, navigated through changing landscapes, and adapted to the unpredictable shifts in climate. These migrations were not random. They were carefully calculated, driven by the knowledge of the environment, animal behavior, and seasonal changes. Survival during the Ice Age required not only physical endurance and adaptability, but also the strategic movement of human groups across vast, often treacherous terrain. Migration patterns were strongly influenced by the seasonal cycles of the Ice Age. During warmer periods, early humans would have expanded their territories, following animal herds northward into richer, more resource-abundant areas. However, as the climate grew colder, these same groups were forced to move southward, seeking refuge in milder climates where food was more readily available. This ebb and flow of migration were essential to maintaining their survival. Humans were deeply attuned to the rhythms of the land, the movement of animals, and the changing seasons. Their ability to adapt to these rhythms allowed them to not only survive, but thrive in environments that could often feel like death traps. One of the most significant factors influencing migration was the movement of large herbivores like mammoths, bison, and reindeer. These animals were the primary food source for early humans, and their migration patterns would have dictated the movement of human groups. As these animals moved in search of food, early humans followed. The ability to track and anticipate the movements of herds was critical for successful hunting. By understanding the migratory patterns of animals, humans could plan their journeys, ensuring they were in the right place at the right time for a successful hunt. Migration was not just about following the herds. It was also about survival in the face of changing climates. The Ice Age was marked by alternating periods of extreme cold and more temperate climates, known as glacial and interglacial periods. During glacial periods, vast sheets of ice covered much of the planet, pushing human groups southward into more hospitable areas. However, as the ice sheets retreated during interglacial periods, early humans could venture further north, exploiting newly accessible resources. These cycles of glacial and interglacial periods shaped the migration patterns of early humans, driving them to adapt to different environments. The routes that early humans took during their migrations are still a subject of great interest and debate among scientists. Fossil evidence suggests that early humans followed a variety of paths, often crossing large distances in search of food and shelter. One of the most significant migrations was the movement of humans out of Africa into Europe and Asia. Over tens of thousands of years, early humans adapted to a wide range of environments, from the frozen tundras of northern Europe to the temperate forests of Asia. This spread was not only a result of necessity, but also of innovation, as early humans developed new tools, techniques, and social structures to help them adapt to different environments. During migrations, early humans would have faced numerous challenges. The terrain itself was often harsh, with snow-covered landscapes, frozen rivers, and dense forests to navigate. In addition to the physical difficulties of the journey, early humans would have had to contend with the threat of predators, hostile weather, and the scarcity of food. The physical toll of migration was immense, as humans had to carry their belongings, including tools, food supplies, and the skins of animals, which were used to make clothing and shelter. The constant movement would have required a level of resilience and endurance that was truly remarkable. Yet, migration was also an opportunity for growth and innovation. The movement of human groups allowed for the exchange of ideas, tools, and cultural practices. As groups came into contact with new environments and other human groups, they shared knowledge and adapted new technologies. For example, early humans who had mastered hunting large game in one area could pass on their knowledge of tracking, trapping, and weapon-making to others. Similarly, the development of new tools, such as the otlotl, a spear thrower, would have allowed early humans to hunt more efficiently and successfully in a variety of environments. Migration helped spread these innovations, allowing them to be shared across vast distances and different communities. One of the key elements that enabled migration was the formation of social bonds and cooperation within human groups. Early humans traveled together in small family units or tribes, sharing resources, knowledge, and responsibilities. The shared experience of migration strengthened these bonds, as each person had a role to play in ensuring the group's survival. Some members of the group would have been responsible for hunting, while others for gathering food or caring for the sick and elderly. The division of labor allowed the group to function as a cohesive unit, capable of withstanding the challenges of migration. The migration of early humans was not just limited to the search for food and shelter. It was also driven by the need for safety and defense. As groups moved into new territories, they encountered other human groups, and competition for resources often led to conflict. These interactions could be violent, as groups fought over hunting grounds, water sources, or shelter. However, migration also allowed early humans to form alliances, share resources, and trade with other groups. The movement of humans across the landscape facilitated the development of early trade networks, which helped to increase the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices. Archaeological evidence of migration is often found in the form of tools, art, and remains left behind by early humans. Stone tools, which are often the most durable artifacts, can tell us a great deal about the movement of human groups. For example, tools made from specific types of stone found in one region may appear in distant locations, suggesting the humans traveled long distances, either to hunt or to trade. The spread of art, such as cave paintings, can also provide clues about migration. These artworks, which depict animals and human figures, may have served not only as expressions of spirituality, but also as markers of territory, communication, and cultural exchange. The significance of migration in early human history cannot be overstated. Migration was not merely about survival. It was a defining characteristic of human adaptation. The ability to travel vast distances, to move in response to environmental changes, and to learn from the experiences of other human groups allowed early humans to thrive in a world that was constantly shifting. Migration played a key role in the development of human societies, cultures, and technologies. It helped shape the human species into the adaptable, innovative beings we are today. In conclusion, migration was one of the most critical factors in the survival of early humans during the Ice Age. It allowed them to adapt to changing environments, follow food sources, and expand their territories. The challenges of migration, such as harsh terrain, scarce food, and competition with other groups, were immense, but early humans' ability to overcome these obstacles ensured their survival. Migration was not just a journey across the landscape. It was a journey of growth, innovation, and adaptation. Through migration, early humans learned how to survive, and in many ways, it was migration that helped propel them toward the future. In the unforgiving climate of the Ice Age, hunting and gathering were not just activities. They were the very foundation of survival. Early humans, living in a world dominated by giant mammals and the constant threat of cold, had to rely on their wits, tools, and physical strength to provide food, clothing, and shelter. Hunting provided the necessary protein and fat, while gathering allowed for the collection of essential plant materials, such as berries, roots, and nuts. Together, these activities formed a delicate balance that kept early humans alive through long winters and unpredictable seasons. Hunting large game was perhaps the most significant and dangerous aspect of early human life. The animals of the Ice Age, such as mammoths, bison, and woolly rhinoceroses, were massive and powerful creatures, often weighing several tons. Taking down such an animal required strategy, teamwork, and, above all, the right tools. Early humans used weapons like spears, arrows, and atlatls, spear throwers, which allowed them to hunt these beasts from a distance. The development of these weapons marked a turning point in human evolution, providing early humans with the ability to take on prey much larger and more dangerous than themselves. Hunting large animals was not just about brute force. It required knowledge of animal behavior, the environment, and timing. Early humans had to understand the seasonal migrations of prey animals and the best times to hunt. They also needed to coordinate their efforts within the group, as hunting these large animals was rarely a solo task. The hunt was often a cooperative effort, with individuals working together to surround and trap the prey. This teamwork not only ensured the survival of the group, but also helped to strengthen social bonds within the tribe. In addition to their weapons, early humans also used traps and other tools to aid in hunting. Pitfalls, snares, and nets were constructed to catch smaller animals like rabbits, birds, and other game. These traps required both skill and knowledge of the environment, as early humans needed to understand where and how to set them for maximum efficiency. The ability to make and set traps added a layer of complexity to hunting, allowing humans to capture prey without the need for direct confrontation. This gave early humans an edge, especially when hunting smaller, faster animals that were harder to catch with spears or arrows. While hunting was crucial for survival, gathering also played a vital role in early human life. Foraging for edible plants, fruits, seeds, and roots allowed early humans to supplement their meat-based diet. In many areas, especially during the winter months when large game was scarce, gathering would have been a critical source of sustenance. Early humans likely gathered a variety of plants, many of which were rich in vitamins and minerals essential for maintaining health during the harsh winter. Gathering also provided materials for making tools, clothing, and shelter. Plant fibers could be woven into ropes, mats, and baskets, while some plants were used for medicinal purposes. Early humans had a deep understanding of the natural world, and their knowledge of edible and medicinal plants would have been passed down through generations. Women and children, who often played a central role in gathering, were likely responsible for collecting these materials, allowing the men to focus on hunting. This division of labor was a key feature of early human social structures, ensuring that all members of the group contributed to the overall well-being and survival of the tribe. The relationship between humans and the environment during the Ice Age was symbiotic. Early humans did not simply take from the land. They worked with it, adapting their strategies to ensure that they did not deplete the resources around them. Sustainable hunting and gathering practices allowed early humans to survive in the long term. For example, hunting large animals like mammoths would have been done with care, ensuring that the herds did not become overhunted. Similarly, plants were gathered in a way that preserved the growth of future generations. This careful balance between taking and giving back was critical in ensuring the survival of early humans through the many generations of the Ice Age. The tools used in hunting and gathering were also essential for survival. Early humans crafted an array of specialized implements to aid in their tasks. Stone tools, including knives, scrapers, and axes, were used to process meat, cut plants, and prepare hides. Bone tools were also critical, particularly for sewing clothes and constructing shelters. The evolution of tools over time reflects the growing complexity of early human life, as these tools became more refined and specialized to suit the needs of hunting and gathering. Food preparation was another crucial aspect of the hunting and gathering lifestyle. Once animals were killed, early humans had to process the meat for consumption, which often meant butchering large carcasses in harsh conditions. This task required knowledge of anatomy, as well as the proper tools to cut and preserve the meat. In many cases, the meat was dried, smoked, or stored in cool places to prevent it from spoiling. Early humans also used animal fat to make candles or lamps, and bones were used for tools, making sure no part of the animal went to waste. These practices ensured that the group could make the most of every kill, even when fresh food was not readily available. One of the most important aspects of hunting and gathering was the role of fire. Fire was essential for cooking food, providing warmth, and warding off predators. The ability to control fire was a significant technological advancement, allowing early humans to cook meat, which made it easier to digest and more nutritious. Cooking also allowed for the breakdown of harmful bacteria and parasites, making food safer to eat. In addition to its practical uses, fire also played a social role. Groups would gather around the fire to cook, share food, and engage in social activities, reinforcing the bonds within the community. The act of hunting and gathering also had psychological and emotional benefits. In the harsh conditions of the Ice Age, early humans faced a world that was both hostile and unpredictable. To survive, they needed not only physical strength and social cohesion, but also the ingenuity to create and utilize tools and fire. These technologies were not merely luxuries. They were fundamental to daily survival. Fire provided warmth, light, and a means to cook food, while tools enabled early humans to hunt, build shelter, and process resources. Together, fire and tools represented the most significant technological advancements that set early humans apart from other species and allowed them to thrive in an otherwise unforgiving world. Fire, in particular, was a revolutionary technology that had profound implications for survival. It was more than just a source of warmth. Fire allowed early humans to cook food, make tools, and protect themselves from predators. Cooking with fire was a game changer. It made food more digestible, safer to eat, and more nutrient-dense. By cooking meat, early humans could break down tough fibers and eliminate harmful parasites, making it easier to obtain essential nutrients. Fire also allowed early humans to make a wider variety of foods, adding diversity to their diets and improving their chances of surviving harsh winters when food was scarce. Fire also played a key role in the social and emotional lives of early humans. As they gathered around the warmth of the fire, early humans could share food, tell stories, and engage in communal activities. The socialization around fire likely played a role in strengthening the bonds between individuals, helping to create a sense of community within the group. In this way, fire was not just a tool for survival. It was a central element of early human culture. It provided the group with a sense of security and warmth in an otherwise cold, dangerous world. The ability to create fire marked a significant leap forward for early humans. The first humans likely discovered fire through natural causes, such as lightning strikes or volcanic activity. However, the ability to control fire and make it on demand was a major technological breakthrough. Early humans learned to create fire using friction, rubbing sticks together, or striking flint to produce sparks. Later, they began to use other methods, such as fire drills and the bow and arrow technique, which allowed them to start fires more efficiently. This mastery of fire enabled humans to venture further into the coldest regions, where fire could be the difference between life and death. In addition to fire, early humans developed a wide array of tools that were essential for their survival. These tools were crafted from materials like stone, bone, and wood, and were designed to perform specific tasks. The first tools were simple, made by striking rocks together to create sharp edges. These tools, known as Oldowan tools, were used for cutting, scraping, and processing animal hides. As time passed, early humans developed more sophisticated tools, including hand axes, spears, and scrapers, which allowed them to hunt more effectively, build shelters, and process food. One of the most significant tool-making advancements was the development of the Acheulean hand axe, a bifacial tool that was carefully shaped on both sides to create a sharp edge. The hand axe was an incredibly versatile tool, used for chopping wood, cutting meat, and even digging. The precision required to create these tools demonstrated a level of cognitive sophistication that was unique to early humans. The ability to produce such specialized tools allowed early humans to manipulate their environment and increase their chances of survival. In addition to hand axes, early humans crafted other tools for hunting and gathering. Spears and arrows, made from bone, wood, and stone, allowed early humans to hunt large game from a distance, reducing the risk of injury. Atlatls, or spear throwers, were another key technological advancement. These tools extended the range and power of the spear, allowing hunters to bring down large prey like mammoths and bison more effectively. The use of tools such as these marked a turning point in human evolution, allowing early humans to become more efficient hunters and expand their range across different environments. In the realm of gathering, early humans used tools to harvest plants, extract roots, and process food. Simple digging sticks, made from wood or bone, were used to uproot plants and tubers. Stone tools were also employed to grind seeds, nuts, and grains, enabling early humans to prepare a wider variety of foods. These tools were essential for foraging, allowing early humans to access a greater variety of resources. The ability to process plant materials efficiently gave early humans an edge in times of scarcity, when animal resources were limited and plant-based foods became a critical source of nutrition. Tools were not just used for subsistence activities. They were also integral to the construction of shelter. Early humans used stone tools to cut wood and shape animal hides, allowing them to build more permanent structures. In the Ice Age, survival wasn't solely reliant on individual strength or cunning. It was deeply rooted in the cohesion and cooperation of groups. Family structures and social bonds formed the backbone of early human society, influencing everything from hunting strategies to the sharing of resources and the way people coped with the harsh realities of their environment. The importance of social ties cannot be overstated, as early humans relied on one another not only for practical survival needs, but also for emotional support and shared cultural practices. In these close-knit groups, roles were divided, responsibilities shared, and decisions made collectively, ensuring the long-term survival of the tribe or family. The concept of family during the Ice Age was both a biological and a social construct. The family unit, typically composed of parents, children, and extended kin, was the fundamental social group. However, families were often part of larger tribal or communal groups, which could range from a few dozen to several hundred individuals. These larger groups lived together, worked together, and faced the same environmental challenges, providing a network of support and cooperation. The dynamics within these groups were complex, with people relying on each other for a wide range of tasks, from hunting and gathering to building shelter and caring for the sick or elderly. In the face of constant challenges, whether due to food scarcity, predator threats, or extreme weather conditions, these groups were tightly knit, with strong interdependencies. The role of women in these societies was particularly significant. While men typically took on the role of hunters, women were key players in gathering, processing food, and maintaining the home. Women were also responsible for child-rearing and caring for the elderly, tasks that were just as vital to the group's survival as hunting large game. In this way, survival was a collective effort, and the work of each individual, whether in the home or in the hunt, was indispensable. The survival of early humans during the Ice Age was not just a matter of physical labor. It also depended on emotional and psychological resilience. Life in such a harsh environment would have been incredibly stressful, with long winters, unpredictable food sources, and the constant threat of predators. The bonds between family members and group members provided not only a support system for practical survival, but also a psychological buffer against the constant stress of the environment. Emotional support from loved ones likely played a significant role in helping individuals cope with the hardships of daily life. Social bonds helped individuals feel connected to something larger than themselves, which was crucial for maintaining mental health in such an isolating world. The relationships between early humans were also deeply influenced by the need for cooperation. From the hunt to shelter building, every task was easier when done together. Communication was essential, and while we don't know exactly how early humans communicated, evidence suggests that they had complex systems of vocalization, gestures, and possibly early forms of language. Through communication, early humans coordinated group efforts during hunts, decided when and where to migrate, and organized the tasks necessary for shelter construction. This cooperation also extended to the sharing of food, an essential aspect of social life. It's likely that food was distributed according to need or social standing, ensuring that everyone had enough to survive. Group cohesion was also vital in protecting against predators. Early humans faced numerous dangers from wild animals, such as cave bears, saber-toothed cats, and wolves. In the face of these threats, groups worked together to defend themselves, often using fire, weapons, and strategies to drive off predators or hunt them. The presence of other group members provided a sense of safety, as there was strength in numbers. Early humans likely formed close social bonds as a means of mutual protection, strengthening their relationships not just emotionally but physically, as they relied on one another for safety and defense. The concept of leadership in early human societies was likely based on experience and knowledge rather than hierarchical structures. Leaders would have been individuals who were particularly skilled in hunting, foraging, or tool-making, and who had the wisdom to make important decisions for the group. These leaders might not have held formal power, but their ability to guide the group through difficult circumstances would have made them respected and influential figures. Decision-making was likely a communal effort, with elders or experienced members of the group being consulted on critical matters, such as where to migrate or when to hunt. While family and immediate social groups were the foundation of early human survival, interactions with other groups also played a significant role. Early humans did not live in isolation. They interacted with other groups, whether for trade, socialization, or conflict. Evidence from archaeological sites suggests that early humans traded tools, animal skins, and other goods with neighboring tribes. These interactions likely facilitated cultural exchange, allowing early humans to share knowledge, improve their tools, and adopt new survival techniques. Trade also helped early humans access materials that were scarce in their immediate environment, such as flint for tool-making or certain types of food or medicine. Conflict between groups, however, was also a reality. Early humans were not just concerned with surviving the natural world. They also had to defend their territories and resources from rival groups. Territorial disputes could result in violent clashes, and groups often had to compete for the same resources, especially during times of food scarcity. While we may envision early humans as largely peaceful, evidence suggests that they were capable of aggression when necessary. This conflict likely shaped early social structures, as groups needed to be able to defend themselves and maintain control over their territories. For early humans, survival in the harsh and unpredictable world of the Ice Age was not solely a matter of physical prowess or ingenuity. It also required a deep understanding of the natural world, which was often intertwined with spiritual beliefs and rituals. These beliefs provided early humans with a framework for interpreting the world around them, offering explanations for natural phenomena, life, death, and the cyclical patterns of nature. The rituals and spiritual practices that emerged in these societies were crucial for bonding groups together, reinforcing social structures, and providing emotional resilience in the face of adversity. In a world filled with danger and uncertainty, belief systems serve as a means to cope with the unknown and a way to ensure survival. Rituals in early human societies were closely tied to key aspects of survival, such as hunting, seasonal changes, and life transitions. These practices were not just symbolic. They were deeply practical and connected to the rhythms of daily life. For example, rituals related to hunting were designed to ensure success in the hunt, as early humans believed that appeasing the spirits of the animals they hunted could improve their chances of a successful kill. The connection between spirituality and hunting was particularly evident in cave art, which often depicted animals in great detail. These depictions may have served not only as representations of the prey, but also as a way to invoke blessings from the spirit world for a bountiful hunt. One of the most significant rituals was that associated with death and burial. Early humans' beliefs about the afterlife were shaped by their experience with the harsh realities of life. The death of a loved one was not simply a biological event. It was a spiritual and social one. Burial practices, such as the deliberate placement of bodies with tools and ornaments, suggest that early humans believed in an afterlife or continued existence in some form. The care taken in preparing the dead for burial, sometimes with grave goods, such as weapons or symbolic items, reflects the belief that the deceased would need these items in the next life. These burial rituals helped establish a sense of continuity and cultural identity, allowing early human groups to honor their ancestors while reinforcing the collective memory of their shared experiences. In addition to burial rituals, early humans engaged in other practices that connected them to the spiritual realm. Evidence from cave paintings, carvings, and other artifacts suggests that early humans performed ceremonies to honor the animals they hunted. These rituals likely included offerings or symbolic acts intended to demonstrate respect for the creatures that provided them with sustenance. The belief in animal spirits was not limited to hunting. It extended to the everyday life of early humans, shaping their relationships with the natural world. Early humans likely believed that animals had souls, and that by appeasing these spirits, they could ensure the continued availability of food and resources. This spiritual connection to animals was central to their survival, reinforcing the need to live in harmony with the environment. The cycles of nature also played a crucial role in early human belief systems. The changing seasons, with their predictable patterns of cold and warmth, day and night, were seen as forces of nature that were governed by spiritual laws. Early humans understood the importance of these cycles, as they determined the availability of resources and the timing of migrations. Rituals tied to the seasons, such as those that mark the arrival of spring or the onset of winter, were likely used to mark the passage of time and to ensure that the group was in tune with the rhythms of nature. These seasonal rituals may have included celebrations, feasts, or sacrifices intended to ensure that the community would thrive through the coming months. These practices helped early humans maintain a sense of stability and order in a world that could often seem chaotic and unpredictable. In addition to seasonal rituals, early humans also performed rites of passage to mark significant life transitions, such as puberty, adulthood, and death. These rites were often communal and involved the entire group. For example, a young person might undergo a series of tests or challenges to prove their worthiness to join the adult community. These rituals not only helped integrate individuals into the group, but also reinforced the social bonds that were crucial for survival. The rite of passage was a way to prepare the individual for the responsibilities of adulthood, which included hunting, gathering, and caring for the tribe. The passing of knowledge from one generation to the next was central to these rituals, ensuring that the survival skills necessary for life in the Ice Age were passed on. The role of the shaman or spiritual leader within early human groups is also worth noting. Shamans were individuals believed to have a special connection to the spiritual world, capable of communicating with spirits, ancestors, or gods. In many Ice Age societies, shamans played a central role in rituals, guiding the group in spiritual practices and offering advice or protection. These individuals were often seen as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds, and their guidance was sought during times of uncertainty, such as before a hunt or during periods of illness. The shaman's role was multifaceted, encompassing aspects of healer, advisor, and spiritual leader. The shaman's ability to connect with the unseen world was a crucial part of the survival strategy, as their insights were believed to help guide the group through difficult times. While much of the evidence for early human spirituality comes from archaeological finds, such as cave paintings and burial sites, the emotional and psychological importance of rituals cannot be underestimated. Rituals helped early humans cope with the stresses of daily life. The harshness of the Ice Age world, with its unpredictable weather, dangerous predators, and constant food shortages, would have placed an enormous psychological strain on individuals.